Toby Pschorr for idee10 in Cannes, here on the pier with 180. I'm introducing to you the partner and executive creative director of 180 Amsterdam, Andy Fackrell. Andy, Cannes, last year a little bit a subdued affair. What's your take on 2010?
I think, it's busy. It's really busy. There's more categories this year. There's film craft. There's more awards as we get here. But generally, it's sunnier than last year, so it's a good vibe. It's not an oppressive vibe, but not a feeling of recession. It's definitely feeling good. Everyone's enjoying themselves. It's back to how it was a few years ago, I think.
Brilliant. And the reason for you're throwing a beach party this year, have you already got some stuff picked up?
Well, we're still in the shortlist category on film and craft, I hope. So, I'm hoping we, typically for editors, you get a World Cup here, you want to get something in there. So I'm hoping we pick up something. That's why we're still staying. Otherwise, we'll be shipping off home right now, I think.
Brilliant. So good luck for that. Andy, 180, known as a very international agency. Give us your take on why Amsterdam, some of your kind of early principles, how you ensure you stay absolutely multicultural and have a European perspective on things.
Well, it's interesting, the European perspective, because we have an awful lot of Australians and New Zealanders working at the agency. I mean, but it does change year by year, the levels of whether it be German or Swedish, and I suppose it goes with the flow. The Swedes were dominating a few years back, and now we've got a bit of a mix. But we've always have like more than 20 or 30 nationalities in Amsterdam to choose from, or to employ. And I think, the talent pool is so vast. And I think to keep it fresh, definitely with Europeans, you can get a different way of thinking, just with what nationality walks in the door. And so, we had a really great Finnish team. We've had great Swedes. We've had, at the moment, quite a lot of Germans. Ironically, working with the editors on the World Cup. So, we just keep changing. You want to be able to turn over quickly, and you can do that in Amsterdam. I mean, it's like one of those port cities like Singapore, Amsterdam. You just get these kind of ragtag of people walking through, and you pick them up, employ them, and they see what they do. And it's a good town for getting people that obviously speaking English is a good thing as a European city. Everybody needs to have a degree of speaking English. So some people haven't, but it's just a melting pot town, and we just embrace that as a culture. And ourselves, Wieden & Kennedy, all those international agencies make Amsterdam what it is, and build a kind of a culture now. That you can do global advertising out of a small village environment. It's kind of interesting sort of dynamic that has developed,
Thank you, Andy. You've already mentioned Adidas, very high-profile German-based client. Give us your take on the German ad scene.
Well, without saying, I tell you what, we tend to think in international terms, in terms of like specific scenes. I mean, German work's always polished. It's always a high degree of craft. Sometimes it just lacks. Sometimes you just think it lacks. Well, maybe because I'm not German, the humor for me doesn't get through. It just lacks a little bit of spontaneity at times. You get sometimes once in a while, but generally you see, fairly big brands advertising like big brands. You know what I mean? So just to be able to throw that away a little bit and be a bit irreverent is maybe a bit tough, but that goes with a lot of brands that are big brands. And Germany's a big economy, big business. DHL, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, they pride themselves on, I think German advertising prides itself on being cool. There's cool factor, and irreverent is not quite a word you'd use about German advertising quite often, except the MTV campaigns that come along every once in a while. So I think, it's not a self-deprecating culture at times. So I think that's the beauty of maybe the English are the most self-deprecating race there is. So they can build that into their advertising a little bit. But I think you see a country like Germany slowly embracing international advertising and slowly becoming a global. But it has its swings. Suddenly, the Wind campaign won the Grand Prix last year from a German agency. You'd never think that would come out of a German agency. So I guess it's a stereotype to say that the nation stay to their true style or to their cultural kind of stereotype. But peaks and troughs. Some countries just come up there. One ad can quite often change the scene. Like when Wyden and Kennedy came to Amsterdam, one ad, good versus evil, changed the way you perceive the advertising industry in Amsterdam. Suddenly it was big budget, and international advertising just spawned out of that culture. So anything can happen, really. And great creatives though, great creative environment.
Okay. Andy, 180 always known for its fully integrated approach. How do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you move things on?
Well, it's such a random thing right now where you just keep your eyes open. And I think in terms of turnover of staff and the people that work there, it's getting even quicker. And we've had quite a solid staff, creative staff for 5 or 6 years, and now that's turning over a little bit. We've got new people, younger people coming in. You just got to keep it young. And now the kids that are coming in who are 23, 24 years old, they don't know an age that wasn't digital. They don't know an age without Facebook and those sort of things. So it's suddenly become, that's the norm for them. It's not having to teach them to be digital, that's the norm. So I think just hiring young and keeping the staff, engaged, hungry, and that's the only way to do it. But in terms of integrated, it's been our philosophy, digital is part of above the line. It's not handing it off our project to different companies. We really, I think, made a mark in the ground with the +10 campaign 4 years ago. Really, every channel had to really feed into the big picture. And that was they picked up a couple of Grand Prix here and there. And I think it was a big piece of business with lots of countries doing the work, all feeding through. It's a really hard thing to orchestrate. It's really hard when you have an event like, say, the World Cup, and you're having to orchestrate everything at one point. But, and integration changes each time. Sometimes integration means, it depends the idea. Whether there's one underlying line or a thought or a +10, or it's a series of channels that lead to a bigger picture. It's never quite so easy judging a titanium line to say that's the integrated campaign, because also that should change, because it was just a case of retrofitting campaigns to fit into a mold to look like it was one campaign. But it continually changes the need for integration or what that means. And as media's changes, Facebook suddenly becomes important. Such a tricky question, integration, and it's particularly the titanium entries here. It's always up for debate.
Thanks for your time, Andy. Much appreciated.
No worries.